Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Welcome back to Detroit is Different, the podcast studios. We keeping things rolling. March was a month full, wonderful, beautiful, creative, innovative women. But guess what? It's more than that connected to Detroit because Detroit gets down like that. And I believe creativity is the lifeblood of our people. When I talk about that, the black folks, but so many others. Creativity is the reason to live. It connects to culture in so many different ways. And actually right now, it's a different type of creative. I'm talking about a creative that connects right with children, little homies, bringing out so much in them to tap in and get recommitted. Part of Freedom Dreams, so much more, and so many innovative things on the east side. So, Jasmine.
What up?
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Everything is cool. Everything is cool.
That's good.
So in this project, and it was definitely like a couple different connections saying like, you got to talk to Jasmine. You got to talk to Jasmine. You got to talk to Jasmine.
Okay.
And we're going to definitely talk a little bit more about what this project is shortly.
Okay.
But Jasmine Noble, you are connected to Boggs Center School. You are connected to Freedom Dreams. You are, in the minds of most people, East Pole Town. But if you really want to know, like over there around the other side of Belle Isle, where it's the east side, you've been walking that path for a second now.
Yeah.
So with that, before I even get into your Detroit story and your peoples and all that stuff,
Got it.
what connects you to that neighborhood?
So the Boggs School, when we opened up, I was a founding teacher there. And so
All right, wait. Okay,
Yeah.
some of my Detroit is Different audience may not even know the
What is
Boggs School and
okay.
all of that. Let's give some more context to that.
Got
too.
it. Okay.
Okay,
So the
so-
James and Grace Lee Boggs School, funny because what was that? It was summer. I might have my years off, but like summer 2013, I was working in Corktown at the church over there that has a sign that says "We are not for sale." They do a lot of different work for the neighborhood right there, like Trumbull and Michigan Avenue. I was working there with someone named Amit, and we were doing the Detroit Conservation Association. And so I worked there that summer, and Amit was like, you should meet these 3 women who are starting a school. It's called the James and Grace Lee Boggs School. And I thought that was like the longest name. And I was like, Bugs? And she was like, no, Boggs. I had no idea who Jimmy Boggs or Grace Lee Boggs. I had no idea who they were. And so I met Julia, who was the principal. And
Friend of Detroit is Different.
Friend of Detroit is Different. Also, she was one of the first members of Detroit Summer, which is something that the activists, Jimmy and Grace Lee Boggs, started. She was like, I don't know, maybe like preteen.
Yeah,
and
she was a little homie.
Yeah, she was a little homie. And so now she's the big homie. You know, she's the principal at the James and Grace Lee Boggs School. So long story short, I'm working the Detroit Conservation Association as like assistant program coordinator. I don't want to work. I don't want to teach anymore. I just want to do my nonprofit stuff. But I was so like busy that summer with working. I was like, oh, it's about to be August and September. Like, what am I going to do?
Interesting.
And I put I filled out some applications, had my resume out there, and nothing was biting. And I'm like, I have not gotten any responses from anybody. And so what happened is that Julia went to a meet and said, I've been trying to get it with I've been trying to contact Jasmine, but her emails are bouncing back. I forgot I did not pay for the domain name anymore. I forgot. So like email is off. And so she said,
I'm out as a person that does websites and stuff like that. Hey, keep paying your hosting fees.
Pay your hosting fees. I think it was like GoDaddy or something back then. So I clearly should have had a person that I was connected to, you know, monitoring my things. And so long story short, said there was now an opening. Should I interview her? And Amit said, yeah. So I interviewed with Julia. And I mean, like 2 weeks later, school opened. And it just really connected me to just like the underground, the activism in Detroit that I really wasn't aware of. So I'm from Romulus, and I started to work, you know, doing volunteer work, working with, you know, children and doing different like grassroots work but like I really feel like I got really grounded by just the different relationships through the Boggs School.
Okay, so
Yep.
now let's get into that classic Detroit is different.
Okay.
You just already gave cats out the bag. You're from Romulus. You're a little bit further up the way.
Yeah,
the airport
94
city.
West.
Exactly.
Rhymetown.
Exactly. Well, I don't know
Okay.
if I've ever called. I called it the place where the big tire was as a kid.
Oh, that's not Romulus, but
I
you're on
know,
your
but
way.
in my mind, that's,
Yeah.
you know, because the
I get
airport.
it.
That's what I thought as a kid.
Yeah.
So your people and this
Mm-hmm.
relationship to this area. What brought your people to Romulus? How did you end up there? What was the
Yeah.
connection? What's the story?
My dad is from the east side, Lamont Street.
Okay.
So my mom's people, my mother's grandmother actually lived in the community where Freedom Dreams is doing work.
Your mom's grandmother.
Yeah, my maternal grandmother.
Great grandmother.
No, my mom's mother.
Okay.
My
okay, so your
grandmother,
grandma. Okay.
shout out, Ardina
Okay.
Vaughn, 92.
Okay.
She's still in Romulus, same house.
That's what's up.
Right? And so when she was like 11, they moved to Romulus, which was more like a farm area back then. Met my grandfather, whose people, his father came up north to escape just the injustices and the racism happening in Mississippi. His mother...
Oh, Mississippi. Whereabouts Mississippi? Because it's a lot of Mississippi questions that go,
Yeah.
you know, you happen to just in this connection meet my grandma this week. That's from
Yeah.
Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Okay.
There's a lot of Mississippian. A lot of when I meet any people in this footprint that aren't from, because like most people from Mississippi go further west because the
Okay.
train lines go that way. So that's why so many people from Georgia, Alabama, you know, possibly Florida. A lot of Floridians went all the way up to New York for some strange reason. My
Okay.
family from Florida, and we landed here somehow. But we
Okay.
started in New York.
You started
They
in
started
New York.
in New York. They went to Nyack. My granddad did a diner for a little bit and said,
Oh,
nope,
wow.
I'm coming down to, as them country people say it, Detroit.
Oh, and they started and then came. Okay.
Yeah. Then they had to make their way here. So
Yeah.
Mississippi is just a different path. Like, and it's some Mississippians here in Detroit, but it's just an interesting path usually.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I want to say someone from here was already here.
That's usually the story.
Usually the story. So my great grandfather Patrick Vaughn married my great grandmother Dorothea Richardson Vaughn. The interesting story about the Richardsons is that her father, I'm like the family historian. I give myself that
Cool.
name.
Well,
Her
then I'm gonna go.
Her father, my great grandmother's father, Arthur Richardson, was the first of 21 children.
Wow.
They lived in a farmhouse in Whitaker, Michigan.
I have no idea where that is.
Like
I was a truck driver in Michigan.
Ypsilanti area, Ypsilanti, Romulus, Sumter, Belleville. And so my great grandfather, George Richardson, who was the father of the 21, he put the brick down on Grand River in Detroit. And so there's like this whole write-up about them because they're trying to figure out how this colored man, and is he a colored man because the way that he looks,
Hilarious.
has a steam house. And so that's Romulus. My dad is from Detroit. His folks from Huntsville, Alabama.
Ah, so they're from the
Yeah.
soil. So they may have
Yeah.
been in Black Bottom and all of that good jazz.
Yeah.
That it was a lot of Alabama people in Detroit.
Yep.
That tie is strong.
Yeah.
That's a tie.
So the Nobles.
Okay, so then that your mom met this Detroit man
Yeah.
and came about. So
Yep.
what work? What did your mom do? What did your dad do?
My mom has she's retired from General Motors. She was
okay.
also a Sunday school teacher when I was little, and in the neighborhood, and always did the plays in church and all of that. And she's written 2 books, children's
Okay.
books. She's working now on a screenplay that was like a continuing dream she had all the way dating back from the 80s. My dad has always worked as a medical salesman, and so he's still in that line of work.
Okay. Okay, and that is so you saw like a side of some entrepreneurial spirit because to me, even if you're a salesperson and you work for a company, it's still a lot of assets of entrepreneurship, or what's the new term? Intrapreneurship.
Okay.
You know, because if
new
you
term.
don't sell,
Shout out.
you know,
Okay.
it's like if you don't sell nothing, then you don't eat nothing. So, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not the usual transactional, all right, I put in 8 hours, do I get paid? It's like,
Yeah.
no, you ain't sell nothing. You know what I'm saying? So in this, your tie growing up in Romulus to Detroit, what was your perspective of Detroit? How did you see it? How did you interpret it? You know, what was that connection? Because I'm pretty sure anytime you traveled anywhere, it's like, I'm from Detroit. And then you come to Detroit and it's like, you ain't from Detroit.
Yeah. So it not until I actually lived in Detroit did I say I was from Detroit.
Okay.
So my friends went to TSU and they know, oh, they're from Romulus. We would always make it clear we're from Romulus, not just because that's where we lived, you know. Now that I live in Detroit, it's like I'm from Detroit.
Okay.
So we would travel to Detroit to see my grandmother. So up until maybe when I was 10, my grandma still lived on the east side, Lamont Street. I haven't been, I mean, I guess it's not too far from here. Like I haven't been there in so long. I don't know what tie I had to it when I was younger, because it was more so just like you get in the car, you drive.
Grandma house.
Yeah, and then you go inside of a house. I really didn't like frequent any of the restaurants or any of the community. I do remember sometimes going, like, we would always go to the African American Festival downtown. We would go to the Renaissance Center, you know, the restaurant that was
A Renaissance Club.
yeah, and the elevator, I was super scared. You know, it went so high up. So I saw more of like downtown and just driving to my just different family members' homes. Now, when I got of age, like high school, you know, being from Romulus, you can kind of go Ann Arbor, go Detroit. We were Detroit, you know, so it's like going down 94 to the River Rock. Funny because now I live where the River Rock used to be. It was
funny
a club.
you mention that because we just finished a poll, like on my Facebook poll of like, hey, if you are a 2000s kid, meaning I graduated 01, what was your favorite club? And River Rock polled high.
Yeah.
Comparable to some of the other experiences and what people said.
Yeah.
Some people was like UBQs. I'm like, hey, that ain't my generation. But
UBQ, okay.
yeah, exactly. You wouldn't even know. It's like, hey.
I thought UBQs was something different, but okay.
All of this extra stuff. It was like, oh, the network. And it's like, what are you talking
the
about?
Network.
Somebody
But you
was
would
like,
hear Jeans and Moet at the network. I mean, like, so later on, yeah, I was, we could.
They'd be like, oh, let the Grand Quarters. And it's like, no.
Dang, Grand Quarters. I don't remember that one. Where was the Grand Quarters?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But actually, it was like East Grand Boulevard, like right near Woodward. But all this stuff was like not my generation. You know what I'm saying?
Got it.
It was like, but River Rock polled high, and River Rock was it was an era.
It was like that was, you know, the turn up before going to college. You know, that was, you know, where we were. So more at first it was more recreational. Then it became more like, you know, just work and volunteer work.
And there being like Romulus, because also it is Romulus has changed in the past 20 years, it feels too. Definitely a lot more black folks are moving out west. And I mean, just that whole footprint, Westland, Romulus, Inkster, obviously. I mean, if you guys know the story of Inkster, I mean, it always was kind of in that. But River Root, like that, like that footprint is becoming much more black. Period.
Yeah. You know? It wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was more... so I lived there. Okay, so growing up, there were two known black communities. You had the Valley, that's where I grew up, and then you had the Sub. Then other subdivisions were developed, and so like the Arches, which is behind McDonald's, you know, that was like a mixed community.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, the Arches, and then you have like the Meadows, and you know, but then you have White Cloud, and it's known to be White Cloud because of most of the white people live there. The story about across the tracks, was the downtown of Romulus, but that's also where more white people lived.
I didn't even realize Romulus had a downtown.
Yeah, it's landlocked now.
Okay.
But so interesting is that my first grade teacher, Karen Bashar, she actually just passed away. We were in the newspaper, Detroit Free Press, about, and a lot of it had to do about it being, like a very diverse class, even though it really wasn't diverse. It was like I was one of 4 Black kids. So I don't know if you really call that,
I don't know.
diverse.
In this area of the Midwest, and that's what's so unique about the stark segregation that exists. It's similar to Chicago, like pockets of certain neighborhoods. It'll just be like, yes, there are it's a strong Bengali population around here. It's a strong, obviously, Arab population and then our misunderstandings of even within that is Chaldeans, Muslims, Sunni Muslims, and then within that Iraq, Pakistan, Palestine, so these different it's different groups, but it segments and it fractures to the point where it's okay, this is unique. Even the Mongolian population on the east side.
Near Hamtramck, right?
Yep. And this it's pockets of okay, this is where this group stays, but it really doesn't venture far from these communities.
Streets,
you know what I'm saying? So in a vacuum, yes, a lot of diversity, but actually engaging and interacting, no, not at all. It ain't happening around here.
So Romulus does good with that. I think that the people that come in who, it's not a known family, I think sometimes it's been hard for them to kind of figure out the hometown, whatever. But Detroit, I've been here for close to 10 years, been doing volunteer work before that. And just, been able to see, the changes and the differences and just really, this is home for me.
And I do want to mention this because this is actually a place that some of my family stay. Belleville is another one of those cities where a lot of Black folks are definitely going to now. As that whole concept of what they call Southeast Michigan is becoming more prevalent of Black populations, even moving east, west, north, and south. In and around the city of Detroit as the displacement of Detroit for 2 reasons. One, some people feel as though it's their quality of life is hampered for being here. And then 2, the displacement of people feeling as though they can't afford to be here where they would like to be. So these realities are emerging, hence AKA gentrification.
Right.
And as this is come about in our lifetimes. And in that same path and journey from high school, you say TSU, Tennessee State University?
So that's where my friends went.
Okay.
I went to MSU, then Eastern, and then did my graduate program at Capella. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about, you went to the 2 colleges that I think are most successful at getting Black students to go to universities in the state of Michigan. Michigan State and Eastern Michigan, for some reason, are very successful. And even with their success rates, it's still not a bunch of Black students. But especially Eastern at one point in time, I think maybe from 98 to maybe 2007.
Okay.
Eastern felt a little bit like I would go on their campus and you felt okay, 1 second, well, it's nothing but Black people up here. You know what I'm saying? What was it that attracted you to State and Eastern?
So the real story is that I wanted to go to HBCU.
Okay.
Got my first little job because there was an HBCU tour.
Were you one of those people? Tell me your HBCU story. Was it a different world? Was it school days, or
no,
was it?
It was actually. So going to my church, church was huge. That was really.
What church?
Parks Memorial AME Church. So grew up AME, which also gives a lot of knowledge to the history of Black Americans, right?
Definitely.
Because it's Richard Allen, Sarah Allen. So Many of the people before me that went to college, they went to HBCUs. They went to Tuskegee. They went to, like, 3 people went to Tuskegee. And so,
Obviously,
like,
Tennessee State.
yeah. So I did a lot of visiting. Like, I went to Tuskegee when I was, like, in 11th grade. I went to, I don't know. And I think maybe just, like, the activism that was, like, in me, like, I kind of, that was just,
was drawn to that.
I was just drawn to that because I really don't know the answer other than.
So it wasn't you weren't watching a different world like, I
really didn't even see that as a HBCU.
For real?
I saw it as college.
As TV?
I saw it as college life.
Okay.
So for me, that's what college looked like. I never saw like a television series where it was like a predominantly white group in college.
Oh, you wasn't on Saved by the Bell to college years.
No. But I was doing Saved by the Bell in high school years.
The high school years.
Yeah, so they had one for college.
Hilarious.
I did not know. Did not know that.
Most people didn't.
Okay, I guess it didn't do well. So yeah, so for me, college of course, that's where I'm going. It was no ifs, ands, buts. You know, that's just like after high school, college. HBCU, my mom did not want me to go to HBCU because she felt that if I wanted to come home, because I was known to sometimes get homesick, that my credits wouldn't transfer if I wanted to go to. I had my family went to FAMU. I had cousins that were, and so I think my mom, she did not go to a university, so it's kind of like her wanting to make the best choice for me, and she's hearing from others like, well, the credits can't transfer, So I ended up at Michigan State. And Michigan State, I had a great time there. It actually, of the Big Ten, when I went, was the most diverse. But every homecoming, I went to TSU because that's where my friends were.
Oh man, so you didn't go to like the Keeping It Real or Faking the Funk?
Yeah, but that wasn't homecoming.
I'm just saying, because I was gonna say that was like
Faking the Funk. I woke up that November, like I remember calling my friends at TSU like, dog, it is like a HBCU.
Well,
let me explain what this is. Everywhere.
Let me explain what this is. For people that went to state, like shout out Macon and Karen Duman, all my state people, and so many more. I just mentioned 2 off head, so like don't hop down my throat. Candace, let's see, Dr. Taylor, and so many state people, black folks, good old Sam Riddle. So Faking the Funk is basically what we call trap karaoke now. Before trap karaoke, where like the Black Greek societies will come together on Michigan State's campus, and even though the Michigan State Police, which is a strong presence in East Lansing, kind of allowed, it seemed like, a little bit more leeway for the black fraternities and sororities to do this event where different acts would like mimic whatever like some of the top pop songs would be at the time. So you like your friend would do a Beyonce or Janet
Jackson
or whatever,
Ludacris, Snoop.
Like I say, it's like a more elaborate trap karaoke.
Yeah,
and it just was more so the event of it, and fall. It was one of the few events like, and I definitely never went to state, but everyone knew, like if you were in an age range of, I would say maybe 19 to maybe 24, you knew this was happening and you wanted to be at that party.
For sure. Like Spartan Village was popping. So that was an experience. It's like, whoa, so that was cool. So and then Keeping It Real, people were actually,
that's the opposite.
It wasn't as
It was not as intended because people would rather see people mimic Beyonce than perform original songs. But that's me as an artist speaking on my own platform. But yes, that would be another event along the lines.
Yep. So
So the state experience, you enjoyed the state experience while you were there.
I did. Yeah. Met friends that I have to this day. Yeah.
And in that same like being at a predominantly white institution, because it definitely is that, even being the most black, it's still not like, you may go, it ain't U of M. And when people always say, why you don't like U of M? Because as liberal as U of M acts, or I wish I had a gavel, a Kari Frazier opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a couple of reasons why I have gripes with U of M. Now, I support a lot of the people that I know there, Dr. Ward, Craig. I've gotten a lot of support from U of M over time. But I feel like as an administration, a couple of things about U of M. Definitely, as we've gone in depth about the whole Proposal 2 thing, and I know that U of M says we weren't for this whole thing, but even to bring that case, it still never felt good in my stomach. I never felt the way that they did the Fab Five. This was like me as a sports fan. And knowing Chris Webber is the reason why a lot of people attended U of M in the first place. That's another thing. And also, I was in Ann Arbor last night. Ann Arbor is to liberalism, I think, what Grand Rapids is to conservatism. And it hides behind this veil of being very progressive and inclusive, but it's not.
What are you really doing?
It's such a farce. Like it's like grandstanding, high standing, because in reality, it's not making those real connections. It was the first time. Last night was the first time I saw a homeless person in Ann Arbor. But this is like the place that. It's so funny. When I did my TED Talk at U of M a couple years back, and I'm speaking to this like progressive group of like some students, like mixes of like hipster, today's hippie, and like some progressive, earthy, bohemian black folks that have me speak at their university. And this was the same time like running juxtaposed to like as I was giving this, one of George W. Bush's top advisors was like across the way at one of the other buildings. I was like, this same campus that creates all of this like progressivism is also the same campus that creates a lot of the conservatism. So you all like play both sides of the coin. And at the end of the day, it's just other arcs of reasoning to either come up with more reasons not to just directly give resources to people that need them, or trying to defame the character of people that need resources.
Yeah. And then it's like, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, at the middle of the day, who are you helping? What are the stories? Who are the names of the people that are benefiting from what you're doing? Like, are you that progressive? Progressive in what way? Progressive for, the fundraisers, progressive for the video and the photo ops, like, I guess for me, the receipts. Who is it helping? How are you helping them? And what is it doing? Lets me know how real something is. And that's no matter what the political affiliation is, or if you're left or right, or kind of left and kind of right. It's just like, let's see the receipts.
Yeah, like currently one of those classic, here's the other phrase of Michigan man Stephen Ross that just was recipient of that $800 million in tax abatements and incentives from the city of Detroit, even though he's a multi-billion-dollar businessman personally and has multi-billion-dollar businesses. It's like, hey, if you're going to do things that are so just and right, and this is a place of new society, don't take money from a city of black folks that could use that for other things like storing up our sewer system. If it's a good project, dig in your own pocket and pay for it yourself. But that's that U of M. That's that Wolverine. And I know Yusef Shakur are going to be like, oh, man, it's all of them. Reality, you're right, Yusef. But I'm sticking it to the Wolverines because I think they're more elitist about the way they do it. You know what I'm saying? I think a person from the state will be like, yeah, we did that. And I know I did that.
That's funny.
So,
that's real.
So this is just, tangent conversation.
Yeah. I get it.
Back center. So from state to Eastern, and you're in that footprint of U of M there in Ypsilanti. What drew you over to Eastern?
The School of Education program. It was quicker to get through there. You only had to do a semester of internship. So it's really just like a move of like, yo, I do not see myself graduating. I do not see myself retiring as a teacher. This is just one of the things I want to do. So like, how can I quickly, or in a quicker way, get this degree, move forward, move on?
What drew you into education?
So I started out with a psychology major. And I remember at State, my freshman year, having a course, and the professor was talking about the id, the ego, and the superego. And I was just like, yo, like, I just never heard of those before. And it was so far away from what I knew. And I think I was intimidated. And so then it was like, well, what do I really like working with children. When I was younger, I wanted to be like the Black Mother Teresa.
Was this kind
I
of
don't
maybe
know.
your mom at Sunday school and you being in that mix, or was this
I'm
just a you
sure.
thing?
Yeah, I'm sure. You know, like I think the people that influenced me the most growing up, of course, my mom, and then my grandmother, just my family in general, but then also my Aunt Norma. She's a cousin, but my Aunt Norma, and then my first grade teacher. And so just wanting to help people. And I kind of felt like, well, before people become adults, they're children. So if I want to help, let me catch them when they're young, right? And so that's where the teaching came in.
Okay. So you start the education program, and then that sounds like straight in internship. Where did you start off interning as a teacher? What group of students, like what ages were you working with?
So Bruce Ottenbright, who is definitely someone who always looked out for me, he was the CEO of where I used to work. And, well, he was co-CEO. He drove me to his brother's school where his brother was a principal at Pangill in Ann Arbor. And that's where I did my student teaching.
Okay.
And
what
then
ages?
It was, they were fifth, sixth grade.
Okay.
They were fifth, sixth grade. And I did that. And then I remember wanting to go work back at Michigan Works with employment training designs. I was like, I finished. Let me come back to where I was working because I felt very comfortable there. You know, it was like family. And he's like, no, Jasmine, like, you graduated. Like, put yourself out there, you know. I went to rehearsal for graduation. I was in line to get some more tickets for graduation. The lady behind me is like, my job is hiring for teachers. I'm like, really? I was like, well, yeah, I'm graduating Sunday. She was like, do you have your resume? I'm like, okay, yeah. I gave her my resume, graduated Sunday, had an interview Monday, started teaching Wednesday.
Okay, and let me say this too. Let me give a preface just in the reference of information. Eastern Michigan has a great reputation of being great schools or colleges of education and business. So those are two things looming. So it definitely comes with a tradition.
Yeah, for sure.
In that. So, don't think that if you just go to any school, you're just going to be sitting in line and somebody going to give you that offer. It's already with the preface of, this is an esteemed university
that's known
in that. So
that's known for their college of education. Yeah, so I started in April as a teacher for the third grade classroom.
Where at?
In Inkster.
You came right to the royal to the soil.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like?
So it really. So let me share. So when I worked with Employment Training Designs, which is the partner with Michigan Works in Wayne, Michigan, I went from, being like a receptionist to being someone who would help with employability skills for people who are receiving government assistance.
So also, let me give more context to that. Michigan Works is one of those programs that, like, okay, if you're on unemployment, quote unquote, and you end up on unemployment, part of it is, okay, we want to make sure that you can get some skill sets to make yourself, to possibly change careers, possibly be more attractive to possible employers, and empower yourself and your family. So Michigan Works is programming that does that stopgap. I think that the delivery of those services all deal with the people that are staffing the location and their systems in place.
Right. So I'm working with that population, and I remember one of the ladies. So I'm like a young 20-year-old, working with like mothers and fathers, and it was a great opportunity for me to just be in that field of work, that field of, I'm getting paid, however, it's like I'm doing work that's meaningful and I care about. I never had to work at like a factory or something that wasn't meaningful to me. And so that was a blessing, even though, like, shout out to the workforce and, factory working, but I think that by me not having to do those types of jobs before getting my degree, it really shaped me. So there was a lady, and with the Work First program, you know, you had to be in compliance, and she was being abused. And I remember, you know, learning about it and trying to find some resources for her. Do not remember exactly what happened to her. But fast forward, I remember when I started working at the school in Inkster, there was a kid who was in 4th grade. He was cutting up, doing different things. And I just remember the staff saying, well, you know, the only person that can really get through to him is his aunt, and she's going to come up here. That was the lady who was being abused. And then right there, it was just like, for this little boy, his only support is a woman that a year ago, she needed support. So I don't, you know, it's just like, she has so much going on in her life, and she is the only support for this kid. And I just remember thinking about that. I was like, man, like, the work that I'm about to start doing for real is so important. So I always think about that story. Like, for the woman who was, like, being abused, but she was the, you know, the only person in this kid's life that could reach him. And just like, you know, just like, how do you support that? What wraparound services are needed? Because you tripping about him, you know, not doing his math homework. You know, it's so much more going on if, like, the only support he has is his aunt. And I just happen to know a fraction of her backstory, which gave me more insight to his needs. You know, so where am I? So that kind of got me.
So that 3rd grader.
Yeah.
He was like a crash course introduction, and you said you started in April, so basically the school year is almost wrapping up. This reality hits you off bat, like, so you're like walking off stage from graduation and basically like driving into school the next day, and you got this off the chain 3rd grader. It's like, hey, the only person that gonna talk to him is his people. So it's like, all right, let me call the auntie, find out this is the same woman that when you were in your other position needed more support herself. So you can only imagine the cries for attention that the 3rd grader that's off the chain.
So he was in the next classroom. He wasn't actually in my class, but he was in 4th grade. Oh, it was wild. Like, coming in, they really, I mean, I was young. They really didn't respect me like that. And it was just like, yo, I had to, like, figure it out. I had to figure it out. Like, the stories, I remember this one kid, like, it was, I told him to, like, sit, like, time out, and he, like, went, like, rolling down the pole, and then the whole class went, I'm in love with a stripper, she rock, and she roll, and I'm just like, what? Then I was like,
because you want to laugh at it too, but you gotta keep a straight
like,
face,
I'm trying to, like,
it'll be like, DeAndre, that's not funny.
You know, and so, like, because what happened is their teacher was a black male that left, and so in many ways it felt like their father had left. And dude was like huge and just demanded respect. I remember seeing his like muscle shakes in the closet. And so, but the same kid, you know, I'm in love with a stripper, and the whole class just started, like, a chorus just started singing. And so I said, go, gotta leave, you know. So he goes out the door, then he comes back in, he turns off the light, goes out the door, comes back in, turns on, like, lights, camera, action when I walk through the door, you know, and I'm just like,
that's hilarious. I wonder what that young man's doing right now.
Yeah, I don't know. And then after that, I said his name. He was like, say my name, get it tight, get it right. That's hilarious. It was a lot.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy. The next year, starting out, I figured it out. You know, it's like I started with them, and I ended up getting their respect, you know, because it's like, I'm going to give respect, you're going to give me respect. And that rapport building, they were testing me, you know, like, you know.
You look like you my age.
Yeah, like, what, you know, what you about? And so I actually, like, am friends with some of the kids from there, like, on Facebook. Like, when I was working at another school in Inkster, not too long ago, like, one of my former students, like, came in, and I was like, yo, you know. So it's cool.
So in that, just your life going on right now, like, as you're like, I guess, building, you know, your family, your way, finding your way and everything in this. And I did an interview last year with Prostel. Shout out to Prostel. And he was talking about
we worked together.
Okay. So when Prostel was like, working with the kids, you need a full cup.
Full cup. You need a cup and a half.
And that's what he basically said. So it's like, because it's gonna get out of you, you know, they're gonna get that out of you. In that setting,
Yes.
And a lot of it, I believe, is that cry for attention. And it's tough because you may have a classroom of 25. And I mean, I leveraged it. And I mean, obviously, I'm way more of a good kid. But you leverage it because it also is a group dynamic. So, when Joe does this every day with his head down, like, I'm hurt. My stomach hurt. And it's like, okay. And then it's like, well, you don't have to do work today. The rest of the class is looking at it, it's like, well, if he ain't got to do no work, I'm gonna pull that next time myself.
Yeah.
Then you walk in 3 days later and it's like half the class got a stomach ache. And it's like, all right, and it's tough to like maneuver and build that rapport, build that trust, the abandonment issues, possibly like what could be going on at home. It's a lot of psychological stuff going on to just be an instructor in especially schools that are, I guess, that just don't have the same resources because, like back to that Stephen Ross thing, a lot of that money building District Detroit and Little Caesars Arena and stuff comes right out of millages that are supposed to go to Detroit public schools. So as much as people say that, the schools in the ghetto don't get the same as the schools in the suburb, a lot of the schools in the ghetto have a lot of tax money just taken away from certain students that are just going into developing stuff for jobs, and then they wonder why nobody's qualified or has the education to get a job because the school system has gotten resources taken away from it to get the person to be able to work in the workforce. Like as you say, it's interconnected.
Yeah.
So and you're getting your way, getting your ground yourself too. How did you start connecting to getting that full cup? Not burn yourself out to like, be ready to hit that ground running every day.
Yeah. So I taught for about maybe like 10 years, 11 years altogether. And then, I switched careers. My best training was under the leadership of Phil Price and Tamika Brown, which was my cousin at the time. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, not at the time. She is my cousin, but now it's Tamika McCauley. And I just learned a lot of techniques that just already aligned with the care that I have for kids. So the techniques plus the care and really just creating a family, creating that intrinsic motivation, that thing of like, we're together. Like, we're going to look out for each other. Like, I spoke to them with expectations, but I also didn't belittle them. It's important for them to know. So, like, the kid, I really didn't have a lot of children who did not want to work. I mean, it was a blessing. I mean, I really... And
not less to work, but even when they want to work, like, you just need a full cut. You need to go in there with a certain energy. Yeah. How did you manage to have that yourself?
When I taught, I just had the energy. I didn't get burnt out. When I started to get burnt out is when it's like, okay, I need to switch. And so I think that the self-care, before even knowing the term self-care, now as a psychotherapist, like, self-care is essential because you're dealing with the suicide allegations. You're more privy to more information about the abuse. You now know the students who have had certain abuse that, like, the rest of the staff may not know about. They may see them acting out, but it's like, I know the backstory, along with maybe just a few others because of confidentiality. During the pandemic, I'm getting the emails of, young people like, I'm feeling suicidal, and it's just like, whew, it was a lot. And so some of the things I had to do to protect myself is like, okay, I can't just give my number out because now these are patients. It's not Miss Jasmine, the teacher, or Miss Jasmine, the response to intervention coordinator. Like, now it's like I have a license as a mental health counselor, and there are certain guidelines and things that I have to, I'm a mandatory reporter. Well, I always was, but like, I can't have a kid calling me on my cell phone saying they're suicidal and I don't follow up, right? So now it's like, okay, let me get a business line. Okay, let me put, the voicemail, like, if this is an emergency, hang up and call 911. Your phone call will be returned within 24 to 48 hours. So I had to do things more formal to make sure that I was doing,
So you shift, as we
Yeah.
talked about it, and you just said career path. So you make this
Yeah.
career shift.
Yeah.
As you say, you were getting burnt out as a teacher, which it sounds like now you need a more full cup.
Yeah.
But it's a your differentiation, but still like interconnected.
I'm still with the young people.
What
Yeah.
led you down that path?
So when I was teaching, the burnout became after admin was off. Like, admin switched, and like the things being demanded with us was like stupid. It's like we're coming in like, yo, like upset, and it was just, we're not able to do what we need to do. So when admin shift and, new people came in, and it didn't align with me. It's like,
So you like watching Abbott Elementary, like,
yeah. Now it's just like, I need to go. I think one day, like, I broke a blood vessel in my eye. I was like, oh no, like, done,
Okay.
So that's where that came from. So it was only, the burnout wasn't from working with the young people. It was working with the system. That was like the first time I felt it, and was just like, this is bonkers. So
then you choose the path of.
I was already in school, my graduate program, to be a mental health therapist, because I started to just realize, like, I am passionate about education, but I so care much more about their character and developing their character. And so I was just like, it's time for me to go in that path. So instead of psychology, what I started, as a freshman at Michigan State, I switched it to mental health counseling. And so I'm able to more focus on the character. Like, I don't have to worry about, like,
Freudian theory. Gotcha.
Yeah. And also, like, I really want to work with y'all about, how you're treating one another, and how you're treating yourself, and, your self-image. However, it's like, I know we also have to do work. So I didn't have to, like, pick and choose. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to focus on the character. And, I did private practice, and I've worked, I worked at a couple, like, Robichaud at high school. I worked there a couple of days out the week as the on-campus mental health therapist, and then also at Boggs. But then after not after the pandemic, but like
during
maybe
the pandemic.
Yeah, like 2 years later, they were like, yo, can you be here Monday through Friday? And so I've been there now, along with having my individual clients and also doing the work I do with my nonprofit Community One Stop, and doing the work with Freedom Dreams.
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about your community group, your nonprofit.
Yeah.
Explain it.
Community One Stop, I founded that back in 2009. And the idea was to support the 18 to 24-year-olds, because it's like, okay, so the young people that go to high school, that are not going to college or not going to a trade school or not just automatically working somewhere, a lot of times I could just see that they seemed to be like a little lost. I mean, in many ways, they went 13 years going to a building that at least it was somebody in there they probably connected with and looked out for them, right? And so if they're in a household where, they don't have that support, it's like all of a sudden now, okay, you had like at least one breakfast and lunch for 13 years that you went to school, breakfast and lunch. Other people were there, a bulk of your day was at school, and now you don't go to school anymore. Now what? So for the kids, where it's like a now what, I wanted to be a resource for them. So another thing was that I learned, in order to have a counselor there, you need to have a supervisor over counseling. And I was like, well, I could be the counselor so that I can supervise. So it all just kind of like, it's all been organic. It all just meshed. It all just connected. When I was done with teaching, I was working at Corktown, learned about the Boggs School. While I'm at Boggs School, I meet people that I'm now working with Freedom Dreams. It just all...
So let's talk about Freedom Dreams.
Yeah.
What's Freedom Dreams?
Freedom Dreams is a nonprofit that is made up of individuals and other nonprofits as my Community One Stop. And we are doing some work on the east side of Detroit, in the neighborhood where the Boggs School used to be. We are working on an emerging eco village where the community will have different things in place for them to be more sustainable, to protect against the harmful effects of gentrification, because you see how they're being pushed out.
Yeah,
they're being pushed out.
That neighborhood, like I say, East Pole Town is what some people know it as. To me, it's the other side of Belle Isle, like that pocket Chene.
Yeah, Mac.
So you would kind of look at like Chene, Mac. So like, the non-riverside of Gratiot.
Yeah.
When we think about it, in that pocket, in that footprint, if you're in there, East Warren, Mac, Chene, like
Grandy, the other side of the DeQuinder cut.
Yeah. And it can be, like almost sometimes in that neighborhood, like a Brightmoor, it may be like an acre of
land
where homes were.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it'll be like an acre of land and then maybe like sparsely 3 or 4 homes. What's happened in that neighborhood is also like the quote unquote urban gardening movement, where a lot of people that are not from that community,
transplanters,
not from that neighborhood, look at it like it's here's that other classic term, urban pioneer, but basically gentrification. So like coming and like looking at it like it's like a blank canvas to do whatever they want. Freedom Dreams is a partnership of yourself and others. Like when we think of the Joneses, Pastor Jones, and obviously Coach Kellogg, that people connect.
And Pastor Jones from Sweet Kingdom.
And these are people that have been there for generations. They are the families that, from Alabama to Detroit. And they keep that connection of, Tommy Hearns, a lot of people in that footprint when we think of that community. And they even still connect to this day. Like somewhat like my neighborhood with the Friends for Life picnic where people that did live there come back because they moving either west, east, or whatever, and just don't feel like Detroit has those opportunities for them. And then there also still are a good collection of people over there. The people over there do not have what would be considered like the strongest resources and assets, but what Freedom Dreams is offering is new opportunity.
New opportunities, a way to bridge the gap from those who know of the different resources and those who do not. We, in different ways, whether it's because we, pastor there, live there, work there, volunteer in that community, have different ties. And so the community does look different. There are people who, may have only been there 10 years. And I don't speak as if I live in that community. I'm new as well. Some people know me from being a teacher and, the different relationships that I've built. But it's really about the person who lives in a home. They own it. The taxes are now way more than what it used to be, and now they're concerned about being pushed out.
Got to put that point. Also, a lot of people were overtaxed, and it definitely is a known story. Should be a definitely national story that Detroiters were overassessed on taxes, and our mayor's administration has come out emphatically and said, okay, we really can't do anything about it. And if anything would be done, it would be for taxes 2015 and above. But it's clear that data shows that Detroiters have been overtaxed, running parallel with what we call the housing crisis, what they labeled as more Detroiters different information. A lot of people in communities like mine did hawking their house, as they say, meaning they refinanced their house with another mortgage during a time where they were preyed on, as far as I'm concerned, like predatory lending, to get, that grandma that's, 65, 70 to sign up for another 30-year mortgage under the guise of like, okay, you can get some repairs on your house and maybe give some more money to your grandkids and stuff like that. A lot of people lost their properties connected to
that's so unfortunate.
That act in communities like mine and the Freedom
where we're
Dreams
working.
neighborhood.
So it's protecting the beloved community, and coming together and figuring out, you know, how to support one another, not being, you know, this bubble of people, that bubble of people, this bubble of people, but how can we come together? And I think that's something that, you know, I'm going to be like a learner in some ways. You know, I have been the teacher, but this is something like I want to sit and learn from those that have done it before, of like what it looks like, you know, being more like quick to listen and, you know, waiting time before I speak, you know, in some ways.
So
while I still learn.
So in this, your organization and your skill set and work, you've been connected to schools and working with young people.
And young people.
Connecting to a community, this may change even like the group of people that you're connecting with.
Yeah.
Will the approach change? Will the systems change?
No,
the process?
I don't think it will. Like, I've also have experience with the workforce. With doing different programs for the 18 to 24 age group with getting them employment. So that, you know, that also, it's all about building rapport. It's all about trust. It's all about meaning what you say and saying what you mean. You know, that's where that slow to speak and quick to listen comes in, right? You know, the other thing I try to live by is never promise what you can't deliver and always deliver more than what you can promise. You know, so if I tell a person, like, call me and I'll look into this, like, I need to do that. And if this is where the self-care and the boundaries come in, like, if I'm at capacity, like, I don't need to say that. Because, you know, people go through life and there are people that let them down. I'm not trying to be that person because I'm kind of like overextending myself. And I've had to have lessons on that. Like, that's on you, Jasmine. Like, you need to stop, you know, overextending yourself and just, you know, deliver more than you promise, but never promise something you can't deliver. So I don't think the approach changes. I think that trust is super important, and trust happens over time. Like, there's no hidden agenda. There's no angle. There's no politics about, you know, that's not what it's about. And I think as people see that, they may have like the story they're telling themselves, you know, but if they allow themselves to sit down and we talk, you know, it's like, okay. And I think when people get to really know each other, it's all about trust and holding each other accountable.
So in this trust and accountable, and you say 18 to 24.
And their family, yeah.
I can imagine a lot of this definitely deals with, like, you know, this is me getting a little nerdy, like, you know, the self-actualization of how we feel, of who we are.
Yeah.
And when I think 18 to 24, this, and you guys have seen me do this, has a whole lot to do with, like, that process. So some of this disconnect is like, it's me, and then it's me. Meaning, like, the when I even work with a lot of young people, because I get offered that a lot of times. It's like, oh man, you do social media and camera stuff. Young people probably take to this like, you know, bees and honey. And it's like, not from the lens of which what I'm doing. And I'll sit down and usually meet with a lot of young people, but their perspective is usually consuming this from the lens of how they've been packaged something to be consumed. So they're more interested in being, you know, Meg the Stallion and telling the story on Detroit is different, which I'm not for or against. Like, I'm not necessarily a person pushing one way or the other, because I believe, like, look, I'm for creativity and do what you do creatively, but it has to fit for us to partner. We got to work together on the same mission. And if you're in another way, I'll give you some tools and I'll give you some assets. But I'm giving this long preface to say, due to this, what impact is like unprecedented. I mean, this generation of people that are 18 and 24 have lived their whole life in some ways, maybe not whole life, but maybe since they were like 13. Yeah. Developing two identities. And the tough thing about like when people say, oh, real bullying is worse than cyberbullying. And in some ways it is, but in some ways it's not, because technically that digital
cyberbullying is real bullying.
Well,
but I know it's the difference. Yeah, you know, the physical
like,
versus
yes, somebody punching me in the face in the immediate definitely hurts more than somebody saying, look at the fat kid. But if this lives, like, this digital footprint can live longer for forever.
Then that
you know,
punch.
I could get into that fight. And,
Yeah.
You know, 7 years. 2 months later, it's like, you know, whereas if the right person sees me get punched, that punch could live.
Man,
like,
it's so,
you know.
the phone, man, it's changed the game. Like, I remember working at a school. I was on-site therapist, and I think I was like admin for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Not at the Boggs, it was another school. And somebody was like, I think you should talk to such and such because there's like this altercation. I'm like, okay. And because I'm a therapist there, I'm not the real like stern, it's a high school, And so I'm talking to him, just trying to make sure things are cool. And I'm like, okay. We walk out. I think I have him go to the office. Whole brawl happens. Within 3 minutes, parents are already at the school knowing. How did y'all know this kid was in the hallway? Everybody was on their phone. Mm-hmm. So within seconds, fight goes down. Parents are already there, upset, want to know what's happening because they calling their parents. It's on social media. I mean, it was just like, within 3 to 4 minutes.
Incident like that happened at, I mean, it's not like that's what's now called East English Village, which to me still is Finney. And,
okay.
And Lord knows Finney. I don't even know who's Finney named after, but I'm pretty sure it's some weird oligarch that stole a lot of stuff or whatever. So I'm not necessarily saying it shouldn't be called East English Village, but it's still Finney to me.
Yeah.
Same thing happened. That it was like a big brawl where like chairs were thrown and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to normalize this behavior, but as a Northwestern high school graduate, stuff like that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. And internally, even the way that the school was in response to that. And then this is like after like it's like as you say, the system of it that's broken.
Yeah.
Detroit Public Schools never renewed the contract with the union-based security force that it had. So that changed things, and the security force then moved into like implement and shout out to Ralph Gobby, been on Detroit is Different and stuff like that. The police have contracting with that comes. Mm-hmm. So part of the Detroit Police Department's budget is for Detroit Public Schools as well. Actually, even Homeland Security's budget and things is, Northwestern's one of those schools. I bring this up. I think schools are labeled good schools or bad schools. And if you're a good school, you get good school resources like Cass Tech. If you're a bad school like Northwestern, you get like, gang squad. We had weapon sweeps, drug sweeps, just it was like East Side High sometimes, just because it was labeled as this type of school, and you need this to exist. And it's a line item in here, and you have these units, but that's still not like on-site security that builds rapport and those relationships. with the school.
Proactive approach.
Exactly, and then the standards of like this union contract and what happens. So the same way you were saying, it's probably like that kid from workforce development, like, hey, you want to make $17 an hour, and it's like, nah, I don't really want to be a school security guard, but I don't also want to get kicked off of unemployment. So I'll go on and take this job. So then the next day you're tossed right into this lunchroom at Finney, and you look basically the age of the kid, and you like, hey man, put up your phone and stop pouring chocolate milk on people. And then the kid fronts you off, and then the next thing you know, chairs are getting thrown in the lunchroom.
It's the training. It's the
it's the whole it's
the whole system, man. The whole system. But
and
like
resourcing, and let me put it like this: resourcing, because I got friends, Angelique Peterson, Sherry Dagnago, like a lot of people, like it's people I even know in DPS's school board that I do support. I do think are progressive, but it's still making sure that things are resourced. So it's more detrimental when a lot of the money that's supposed to go to schools gets diverted and goes to other things.
And it's hard sometimes. It's hard as an individual to get the change that needs to happen because of all the red tape sometimes, so it's a hard position to be in. But with the phones, it's the fronting, it's the stunning, it's the concept that life can be hard.
But it doesn't, and then that's the other thing that I think to internalize. Like, I mean, I'm 40, so I don't even know if a lot of people my age sometimes recognize that. Like, okay, you recognize that you're only going to see even the best of me or what I want to show you online.
Yeah. And younger
and
people,
it can become more of a defeatist attitude because, you know, every time you open up Instagram, it's like 11-year-old in God knows where just became a billionaire for making something. And you be like, man, I was wrong.
Like what?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, you know, it's like they, you know, they're on the phone and they scroll and it's like
everybody's life looks way better than yours.
Yeah. And so with that, I think it makes young, well, it's not even I think, the young people that I've worked with, it's like me telling them like 2006 was 2003 was a horrible year for me. 2004 was amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, and then, you know, they're like, oh, because I've literally had kids who something happened and it was discovered that this one young man was like on his way home to commit suicide. And somehow I found out about it and I'm meeting with him. And so, you know, I call his mom in and we're doing all this. And then that Monday, it was a Friday. And then that Monday he comes in and he's like, yeah, I got my hair cut. I did all this. And I'm like, do you understand that Friday you were talking about like not being here? Mm-hmm. And so in some ways it was like, it's a disconnect of like I had to learn like, and this is just me talking and kind of like as I'm thinking and working through certain things in my experiences, like it's almost like suicide, death by suicide is almost like what running away was when we were younger.
In certain ways, I do think that. From knowing a couple people that have committed suicide, and it's unique, and I don't.
It's not. Yeah, it's not across the board.
So I'm only going to make this for the people I know. Like, some were definitely had, I feel, struggles with more anxiety and depression, and it's weird, like, because like leading up to it, as they say, and it's like to see it is weird because they hit a turn where it's like, I think when they make the decision that I'm gonna do this, it's almost like, wow, they don't seem as mad anymore. They seem cool. And it's like, damn, they just committed suicide. Like getting to the moment of clarity of like, I can't deal with anymore.
Yeah,
it is the moment where they kind of open the door and feel like, oh, this is a good place to be. And I'm definitely not, you know, I'm not a counselor or anything.
No,
I talk to people, but you know, this is my form of conversation.
Yeah.
Where I triangulate stuff based on other conversations and what I've seen and lived experience. Mm-hmm. But as far as like those tools and then in communities like ours, the other stigma of what mental health has done, which this stigma also, like any medical industry and like really every institution in America has done something horrible to Black people. Yeah. You know?
So you're dealing with that.
So even building that trust and not having the shame of feeling like you can't figure out life.
Yeah. I think one of the things that has been a benefit is that I'm known in different communities as me. And then it's like, oh, now she's also a mental health therapist. So it's more of the trust of, because they know who I am for the most part as a person, and now she's a mental health therapist, you know. And a lot of times people are like, well, can you, you know, be the therapist? I was like, I know you all. I can't, you know. And so I'm like, I need to do better at having people I can refer, you know, people to. But kind of going back, one of the things I talk to my clients a lot about is thoughts turn to feelings and turn to actions. You know, once our emotions are involved in our thought, you know, it's so important to think about what we're thinking about, because that thought is going to determine.
Expand on that.
Think about what you're thinking about?
Yep.
Okay, so like sometimes the anxious thoughts that we can be having, if we just take a breather, if we just like kind of just for 10 minutes, you know, kind of like peel the onion back. Okay, why am I anxious? Okay. Well, why do I feel that way? Okay, well, why do I feel that way? It kind of brings down the anxiety. When we're not regulated, we're going into fight or flight mode. Like, shout out to the body, fight or flight, or freeze, it's to protect us. But the brain is not sophisticated enough to know when it's a real threat and a false threat. So our body is going into like, I got to survive mode, right? But it may not be the case. So, for example, if an alligator were chasing you, would you stop and take a breath?
I don't know. I mean, I got family from Florida. It depends on how that gets.
Oh my God. Just answer like Ray, like alligator is coming. Are you going to stop and like do a deep breathe? No, you're going to run, right? And so your body is going into like transformer mode. It's like getting away.
Just messing
right? So, or like what's that movie? Cocaine Bears. Like Cocaine Bears after you. That movie was.
Be like, you like partying? I'm just
you know? And so like, when something's happening and you stop and you intentionally do deep breathing, it's sending signals to your brain like you're not in danger right now. Mm-hmm. It's not immediate danger. So you don't have to make this immediate decision, this immediate da-da-da-da-da. It allows your body to regulate more. It allows your blood pressure to come back to your normal, its normal rate, your heart to just regulate. And then, so your thoughts can be more rational, mm-hmm. which then helps your feelings, which then gives you a better action.
Okay, I like that. I definitely like that. And we getting into some overtime here. I'm gonna definitely bring you back. I say this to a lot of people, but I really want to bring you back to expand on some more of these concepts because our community is and you broke that down very clearly.
It's all about our thoughts.
Yeah.
It's in our thoughts.
And it's back to like what we think is reality becomes reality.
It becomes reality because you're
like here's the classic one. Me and my sister, we and it could be, whatever. I'm not saying like it's traumatic or any crazy stuff, but you go through some of the same experiences with like a sibling from years ago. And their understanding and interpretation
for sure.
is so different than yours.
Yeah.
Just her being a year and a half older than me, her being like, the same Thanksgiving dinner was a whole different experience for her than it was for me.
Yeah.
Like something like that consistently happens. But these are, and it's like, okay, both were real. Mm-hmm. Everything did happen, but it just had such a different impression on certain people.
How you thought about it.
And that's kind of sometimes what social media is, like the classic 2 Chainz thing. I get, sometimes like he was like, man, 4,000 people will like a picture, but it's one person that says something negative, and I'm zeroing in on this because it's like this is what's triggering my thought process. And before he even can respond to like what this is, like you have to check yourself and be like, okay, maybe this person is. Here's another thing about the internet now: trolling. It's become like so if you want to know what trolling is for some of my older viewers, trolling is basically the act of creating a persona online to agitate others.
just to cause
so you're
mess.
Basically just agitating others, and this is like how you make how you have fun with yourself, like the classic troll, like when, even though I didn't like that Martin Luther King statue, that was weird, but a lot of people did like a lot of like photo memes and a lot of things just to troll the Martin Luther King statue to make it look like it wasn't what it was, even though I didn't know what was going on with that statue, but still, like, that trolling does exist now.
Oh, for like, that's their high. So then hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, is this a troll?
Yes.
Like in that situation, you go, like, oh wait, hold on, is this a troll?
They're wanting you to respond.
Yeah.
In a
So then
way.
your action, your feelings, you feel different. And then your response is different. But once your emotions are involved, like what you feel is what you feel. So that's why it's so important to think about what you think about. But definitely like to come back and talk more about this because we need it in our community, in all communities,
And just unpacking it. And then this may be some game for the person that can't get to you or just wants to have better understandings of like what you said, even with the deep breathing. Sometimes I feel like in my conditioning as 40-year-old black man, it's certain lessons I learned that some people may look at as like, oh, that was toxic or that was hard. I mean, here's the classic thing that racists say, I was a man of my day. Like certain things that I learned, it just went on where I know it has such strong still impacts on how I look at life, how things happen, how I'm going to interact with people that makes sense to me. And it's a functionality. I don't think it's perfect, but it just it just sticks with me for the rest of my life, where it's like, that probably shouldn't have happened like that. But now it's like I'm conditioned
It's
and
so
I'm
embedded.
socialized
Yeah.
around this is how things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real, right? You have to be intentional in unlearning some things. And but first you need to identify what it is that you may need to unlearn. Like how something that maybe protected you before, you don't need anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's like your body is made to try to protect you. But like maybe, you know, you're in a different space that's not necessary anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if you continue to, you know, like walk around with like boundaries are great, but sometimes, you know, they can be too porous, or sometimes, you know, it's like you're like a fort around you, like a castle. You know, you might be in a different place now. You can kind of like, you know, let some things change. But it's until you only know when you know. And until you know, you're doing the best you can do. Like, legit, you're doing the best you can do to survive to the next day.
All right, so classic. We're going to close with first, how do people get in contact with you if they like to connect, support your organization, things like that?
Yep. So email jnoble at ComeUnity1stop.org. So it's a lot. So come is COME unity, UNITY. Noble at community one stop spelled out .org.
Check the lower third. It's going to be like
right yeah. And then you know, the pun there, you know, ComeUnity, and then the nonprofit's Instagram that we need to do better at. I'm about to look at it now. It's like, let's see. It's like, look, it's taking me forever even to get there. COMEUNITY_.
Okay. All right.
Simple enough.
There we go. All right. So, and then gotta always close. Usually I have like the Detroiter question of like the classic Detroiter, but it's the outsider Detroit question. The question I usually ask is this. All right. Fantasy world. Alien comes to Detroit. It's like, take me to the coolest Detroit place that you know.
Oh.
Where are you taking them?
Okay. I'm gonna say Belle Isle. That's always
That's a good place.
Yeah.
That's a good place.
Belle Isle. When I was younger, on the big slide, you know, senior skip day, Belle Isle. Doing conservation work, Belle Isle. So in all different parts of my life, you know, bike riding more recently, Belle Isle. So yeah. It's kind of like all different levels.
So people be like, that Martian and that lady riding a bike. It'd be like E.T. for real. They'd be like, that's E.T.
Yep. Do a little bike ride.
So that'll be cool. So thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you.
All right. Peace be.
Peace.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.